Welcome back to Up the Villa podcast. This is our Man City preview. Manchester City v Aston Villa. How ironic now that all the talk about Man City and then we preview Man City and we get to talk about it all now. So it feels like hot topic number one is going to be in this conversation. So we will get on to Manchester City, what it means for the league, all of our opinions on it as well. But we'll start off with previewing the game. It's why you're all here. So if you are new, subscribe to the channel, drop this video a like, get involved in the comment sections down below. Joined by Justin and Ryan. So Man City coming up for Aston Villa. It's going to be a difficult game, as we all can imagine. We're coming up against a side with world-class players. How they got them world-class players, we'll talk about in a minute as well. But, so it's going to be a difficult game. We need to bounce back, don't we? We need to put in a performance. We need to, get back to winning ways, as the saying goes. But we're going for 4 away wins in a row, which won't be a record, but it could be if we get to the 5/6 mark. And Unai Emery up against Pep Guardiola. And Manchester City, I was going to just talk about what was going on the pitch, because from what I'm watching, I don't think it all looks too great, in my opinion. I think there's just vibes going wrong with Pep, with the squad, how they're trying to play. And it feels a bit weird because, they've got the top goal scorer, he scored 25 goals, but it don't look like it's working, this Haaland Man City thing at the minute as well. It looks like there's just, it's not flowing. So I think there's a bit of squad harmony. They won't admit it, but I imagine there's something's gone on. Best left back in the league has gone to Bayern Munich on loan, which is just weird. Pep's tinkering with this system, which I'm going to show you in a minute. So on the pitch, they're not creating vast amount of chances. It feels like something's just not quite right there. And I think with everything that's going on off the pitch and what I've just said, I think Villa can do something in this game. I really do. I think if we go there in prime away form, what we've been doing with a game plan, I think we can pose them a lot of problems. So we'll have a look at some of the stats and then we'll get into everybody's thoughts. So let's have a quick look then at the form table. And like I mentioned, Man City's form is on the left-hand side. In the last 5 games, we're currently more in form than Man City. They have lost to Manchester United and lost to Spurs. And in that Spurs game, that they were not great. They weren't great at all. I didn't think watching that game. Spurs had so many counter-attacking opportunities that it could have been more than 1-0. Our head-to-head isn't great reading. 28 wins for Man City, only 7 for Aston Villa in the Premier League era. The last couple of times we've played them, it's not been as bad as what you'd probably imagine. I think we've been holding our own in a lot of these Villa Man City games recently. You've got the narrow defeats rather than the 6s and the 5s, which, prime Aguero had. Every time it felt like we played Man City, Aguero would score. He'd got 10 goals against Villa. Joe Hart had a record of 8 clean sheets against Villa. De Bruyne has currently got 5 assists against Villa. So I'm glad the Aguero is out of the picture because he always just used to love scoring. But, we had a 1-1. Probably should have got some at last game of the season there. And then, like I say, a couple of 2-1s. This is how Man City lined up in their last game. I'll get into this formation in a second. Their average positions from this game as well. They're sort of playing with 4 forwards. And then this is where they're attacking left, centre, and on the right. So, Ryan, how are you feeling? Man City up next?
Yeah, the City camp, getting bad vibes, man. all is not well there, is it? All is not
No.
well. I know they've only lost one game, but the whole season, it just doesn't feel right there at the minute. Feel like the system got a little bit stale. He's tried to change it up, and it's not quite working. I just feel like they're suffering a bit of an identity crisis at the minute. Obviously, they want to feed Haaland because his record is incredible, isn't it? His goal scoring, he's a machine. He's ruthless. He's clinical. I've never seen a striker hit the ground as much as he has in the Premier League, but they're struggling to feed him now. Yeah, it's crazy to think that Manchester City, with all their talent, all their attacking players, are struggling to break teams down. They're like incredibly lacking creativity at the minute. It's like imagination. They're not creating any chances, and they're not feeding Haaland. Now, Pep, possession based, isn't he? He loves possession. He loves control. But Haaland's not the type of striker for that system, is he? You know, they've played with false
You're right in
numbers.
what you're saying, because the way in which you play to a Haaland is, I'm not going to say risk, but you've got to take opportunities to get balls into the box. You've got to play balls over the top, which they're not currently doing at the minute. So I think the fact that they want all the play, sort of nice possession, keep the ball, I just feel like it is hindering them a little bit. And I think if you look at, say, like when they had David Silva and Aguero, there was so much movement up front. There was so many people moving out of positions and interlinking. But when you stick a striker that's occupying centre-backs, it's a little bit different to the type of players that they've had before. So I'm with you. I think that's why they're having this little bit of an identity crisis.
Yeah, what I found strange as well when I watched the Tottenham game was the lack of width as well. You know, when you got Haaland, you want to stretch teams and open teams up, but they weren't. They were so narrow. And Haaland, I think you had the average positions there. If you look at him, he's beyond the halfway line. He kept dropping, you know, similar to what Kane was doing, dropping deep. And I just don't feel like that's Haaland's game. So they are lacking that cutting edge to feed him. So I don't know, has Guardiola just tinkered a bit too much? Or you know what he's like? He's ahead of his time. He'll probably rock up with this tactic next season and they'll be looking class. But at the minute, yeah, like I say, an identity crisis at the minute.
And Justin, what are you thinking?
Yeah, interesting, really, because we are the last probably 6-7 games historically now. We give them a game, don't we? Losing by the odd goal against a team of that caliber. You know, they can take teams apart, can't they? We've seen that over the last 5 or 6 years, but they're not doing it at the moment. Like you've both been saying, you know, that they are struggling to open teams up when you think the quality they possess, you know, in attacking areas. But they've got too many players just not informed at the moment. So I think with what's going on off the pitch, we've just got to feed into that negativity. I think we've got to go there with nothing to lose. It's a free hit for us, really. You know, mid-table. Nobody probably outside of Villa fans expect us to get anything there after, especially them losing last week. So we've got to disrupt them. We've got to go there. We've got to play our game. We've been excellent away from home under Emery. 3 straight away wins. We're good on the road. We've got a very good. The system that we're playing currently seems to benefit us better away from home. There is there's still this little bit at home in there that's just hanging over us a little bit. I don't know what it is, like a bit of a jinx at the moment at home. We just can't quite click at home. And then the Haaland thing, you know, comes in absolutely unreal. First 15 games, it looks like he's going to blitz, you know, the Dixie Dean record of like 60 goals in a season, which, you know, you never thought ever going to be, beaten. But it just isn't working at the moment for him, isn't it? And he's in between a bit of a rock and a hard place, isn't he, Pep? Because you cannot leave a striker out that's scored, you know, almost double what anybody else has scored. But he's not. The system doesn't suit him currently. You know, he's a 6-yard. I would say 99% of his goals have all been sort of tap-ins, haven't they? You know, he's not the kind of bloke that will bladder one in from 25 yards, although he has got that in his locker. So you've got to get the ball into him, haven't you?
But that's what they're not doing now against Tottenham. They didn't even create a chance. I mean,
historically that they've done really well as like without playing strikers for false nines and playing midfielders up there. You know, Jack played there a bit, didn't he? You know, and De Bruyne's played there. The Mahrez has played there. They've all played there, and it becomes very difficult to play against them because you don't know. You know, the way they play football and the style they play. You know, I loved Guardiola's Barcelona, probably my favourite football team almost of all time, and the way they played, they just pass you to death. And I know some people find that boring and it's not direct enough, but if you've got the ball, the opposition can't hurt you, can you? And that's sort of it's simplifying his philosophy, but that's the way they're playing. And at the moment, it for whatever reason, it's not working for them. So we've got a huge opportunity now with everything that's going off the field, which is hopefully keeping them occupied there. And you know, I've seen a couple of press conferences already with Guardiola. He looks very, very annoyed already because the questions are coming about not about the football, but about what's going on off the pitch. So I think we've just got to go and have a go at them. We've got to feed into it. The fans will be massively up for it. I'm going on Sunday, so I'm looking forward to it. And I think we've got to be loud. We've got to be vocal. We've got to make sure they know. Start the game well. And with City, you don't want to get behind early and you don't want to go 1, 2 or 3 behind because you're done then. But if we can get in at half time, like we have been doing, and you know, competitive, if we can make it a competitive game, and if it's 0-0 after half an hour, and we've had a few chances, we're not just being penned back, then we've got a great chance for me.
Yeah, I think so too. And you know, the last game they left De Bruyne out on the bench, which is just mad in itself. You know, it got to a point in the Spurs game where they looked like they were running out of ideas, just waiting for something to happen.
But just on that, sorry, Luke, just on that point, you're right. I always think this about the hype. I'm talking about the hyper elite teams now. So your Man Cities, your Barcelona, well, your PSGs. Once you've got 22 players at least of all equal qualities, they're all world class. You can only play 11 of them, can't you? So it's irrelevant. You know, you say, "Oh, City are brilliant." They are brilliant, but you can only play against 11, can't you? So you've got to leave quality players out, haven't you? And it's got to cause a bit of angst because players like De Bruyne,
Well, yeah,
they
because
don't
one
want
of
to be
them's
sitting on the
gone.
bench today.
Cancelo don't want to do it.
That's it. There's one. You don't want to do it anymore.
So,
yeah.
You know,
They'll do it for a year or two, and then they just think, "Sod it, I want to play football."
Yeah, and one player that is getting better at Man City, he's having a better season this year, is Grealish. But again, it always feels like they're reluctant to let him do his natural game because, you know, as a winger, when you are a winger and you're tasked with, you've got the ball at your feet, take someone on. You know, there's always an opportunity for the defender to win that challenge, to win that ball, and then you've lost possession. So it always feels like when you do watch Grealish at Man City and you see him knock it backwards and he knocks it sideways and he keeps doing it, and you sort of think, why doesn't he just do what he was doing for Villa? It's because he doesn't want him to lose the ball, and that's the bottom line. And I think again that's why when you watch him and he just keeps knocking it back, it's because they don't want to lose it, and that's the simple fact. But there has been one emergence at Man City this season, one player that sort of stood out, and he's now sort of a focal point to how Man City are playing this season, and it is Rico Lewis. So if we have a little look now when we share the screen at how Man City are setting up this season, then predominantly, you know, they've got Ederson in goal, and they are doing something which is a little bit more unusual. So what they're doing is they start the game with a back four. So the back four will be Walker, Lewis, Akanji, Stones, or Laporte, whoever they're playing. You've got Rodri in the middle. And then what they're doing is they're putting 4 players across the front line. So it could be Mahrez, Grealish, Silva, or who's the kid that we were going to sign from River Plate? Never from Alvarez. Alvarez,
Julian Alvarez.
But what they are doing this season is, and Villa tend to do it slightly, but to not to this extreme. Liverpool do it as well. Is what happens is with Rodri, Rico Lewis then goes into midfield, which then creates a 3 across the back. So they're playing Kanji, Ake, and Walker at the back. Rico Lewis then goes into midfield and floats about this area. You've got Rodri in here as well. You've got 4 players across the front line, and then you've got Haaland. So that is how Man City is setting up. And if there's one man I think can expose this, it's Unai. Unai, expose this formation. Because in transition, when they are on the attack, it showed against Spurs that when they lose that ball, there is gaps. There's gaps and holes in this side, and it can be exploited. You're telling me that you can't exploit a left back that's going into midfield, then having a back 3 with a right back in that back 3 as well. I think this is why they're having a few problems, and there's a bit of a lack of movement in this area as well. So that's how they're setting up. I thought I'd just show Villa fans how they are setting up, but. Ryan,
I think that's where most of the trouble coming from, Luke. The defence. If you go back to that screen now, they're set up at 3 at the back, don't they?
Yeah.
3 at the back. So, but then the wingers are more narrow. They're so narrow. I was, going back to Grealish. We was watching Grealish the other day, and he was so narrow, and he takes the ball out wide, and he was up against Emerson Royal, and it was a good battle, and it felt like the Grealish of old, didn't it? Where he's picking the ball up and having to go, get him fouled. And I thought I'd have a quick look at his foul count. And this season, he's sort of getting back to the Grealish we knew, only in spells, but 2.7 fouls a game, Grealish this season. Last season was 2.1. So he's not, that to me is telling me he's not really taking anyone on, which we know, don't we? He's getting the ball, he's laying it off. For Villa, the last season, he was getting fouled 4.2 times a game. So you can see how much his game has completely changed. And I don't think City will ever see the Grealish that we had. Prime Grealish for 18 months. He was completely unstoppable, wasn't he? And it's a shame we'll never see that Grealish again. But he's my one to watch for this game.
We will when he comes back.
Yeah, maybe. But he is my one to watch for this game because, he's only played, a couple of minutes against us in that Villa Till I Die game.
I feel like he'll start this.
Yeah, he didn't get off the bench on that final game of the season when they won the title, and he didn't get off the bench at Villa Park this season, did he? So, I think he will have a role to play. But still, though, the goals and the assists, they're not really totting up at City. So, he's not had a successful time since he's been there. But the more we approach this game, the more I'm getting excited because the City fans are screwing about that defence because you've got Ake, is it Nemanja? And Akanji, sorry.
Akanji,
and Walker, then back 3. Now, City have always built from the back, ball-playing defenders, Laporte, Stones, Walker would get down, Cancelo would get down, they'd be inverted, they'd be on the wing, and they'd build from the back, but you're not seen any of that. It's really laboured. And I've seen the one Man City fan on one of the podcasts call themselves Recycle FC because all they're doing is just obsessed with the ball back, forth, sideways. They seem to be lacking that penetration. And I think Emery's going to be licking his lips. I do think we will counter the hell out of this City side. And 9 points out of 9 away from home. We're going to go there completely full of confidence, ain't we? Nothing to lose. Yeah. We want to just keep them unsettled. We want to get that crowd's going to be nervous anyway. Pep's going to be rattled this week because come Friday on that press conference day, there's going to be no talk of football, is there? It's going to be all about the FFP, which we'll get onto a minute. But that will rattle Pep as well. And the move's not right anyway, and you're dropping this on top of that as well. I think it's a perfect time for us to go and rock up. I really do.
I do too.
I think there's never a good time to get to Man City, let's put it like that. But if there is ever a good time, I agree with you. And the possession-based football they play is utterly pointless if there's no cutting edge. You might as well just not bother having the ball because if you're not going anywhere, what's the point in keeping it? And what Luke highlighted there, he's right. That they commit so many people forward because what they're counting on is just ball retention. So they're counting on getting into the final third and holding on to that ball and just going backwards and forwards, left and right, until they find that opening. Now, if we can press them, really press them, and then nick the ball off them, and then transition quickly, then they're all of a sudden they're going to be turning around and seeing 3 or 4 of our players, hopefully, racing in on three at the back. So I remember Wolves going there having a couple of really good wins against them, and that was because they pressed high and they had Adama Traore on the break, and they couldn't cope with him because once they'd lost the ball, they had that many players in the final third that are just milling around, knocking the ball around, that they got done on the break. I think they lost twice, to them. So let's try that, press them like literally every single player, press them, nick the ball off them, and just hit them on the break. I think that's the way to beat them.
I think it's important Watkins and Bailey have a good game, because we know we like to play it out from the back, but I think against City you can get a bit of joy if you go. I'm not saying long ball, go long. I'm saying a ball that's aimed in the correct channel, the correct area. I'm not just saying like oofing upfield.
Yeah, it can't be aimless, no.
No, I'm talking a penetrative ball that's going to split centre-backs or in an area where they're going to be isolated and we can have a run at one of their 3 at the back. So I think that is an area where we can hurt. And with Bailey, with Watkins, with Buendia picking out pockets of space. So
I know we're going to do the predicted lineup one tomorrow, but I would try something a bit different. So we'll wait for that one for the predicted lineup.
Okay, cool. Right, so let's move on then to, we've got to say, alleged breach of financial fair play rules, because they technically are not guilty yet, but allegedly the Premier League would not go with this over the amount of years that they've been looking at their accounts if there wasn't concrete evidence that they had breached these rules. And they are over 100 times spanning the course of 9 years. They've won 3 league titles in that period. And for me, there has to be the most strictest set of things to happen to them physically going if they are found to be breaking these rules, because if you look at FFP as a whole, it's set up that you can only spend what you earn, right? So the teams at the top of the Premier League are the teams generally with the most money, City, Chelsea, United, Liverpool, Spurs. The teams at the bottom, the teams in the Championship, some of them ain't got a pot to piss in after, basically. So for them to ever close that gap and to challenge with Man City, it is near on impossible. It's absolutely impossible. And, every team generally plays by the rules, don't they? You play by the rules, you play within your means, you can only do what, the spreadsheets say that you can spend and what you can't do. And what I can't understand is how one of the richest clubs in world football are the ones that have done all of this, and they're the ones that are being looked into, because they've got a vast amount of money, and for them to try and, they've got stuff here like, the alleged money that they gave to a manager wasn't the amount that they'd said they'd give to a manager. It was 2 different types of payments, inflating what they earn, hiding what they spend. It's just ridiculous. And I think Man City fans will feel like they're hard done to because it's not them. But at the end of the day, if you break the rules and you bend the rules, then you've got to pay the punishment of what the punishment can be. Now, to give them a fine, what's the point? To dock them 40 points in a season, what's the point? Because they'll get another 40, stay up or whatever. So I think if they are found guilty, then for me, they have to have a massive, massive punishment. And I literally do feel like they should be relegated. They should be relegated from the league. And that sounds like a far-fetched thing to do. But, if you look at the Premier League as a whole, it's absolutely global. The audience that the Premier League have is right across the world. They would say that their audience isn't isn't us. It's not. We're not the audience. The audience is what happens as afar. And I think you got to look at what it can do and the precedent that it can set. Because if it is just a fine, then what you'll find is that every single club will do it. Every single club will just do what they've just done, and it will just become absolutely ridiculous. And I feel like this is a chance for the Premier League now to really hone in and sort of get a grasp of the spending and what happens, and set a level of, you know, how a club should be operating, and use these now as an example of this is what you don't do. And, you know, I was listening to some Man City fans the other day, and they were saying, you know, oh, Newcastle have got all this to come. And I was just thinking, well, nah, maybe they haven't, because if they just continue to do what they're doing and spend wisely and season on season improve, they can watch the shit show that you've had and realise the mistakes that you've had and you know, look nothing like what you do. So I think it is annoying because, you know, we're all competing against this team that allegedly have broke the rules and the rules of the competition and the rules that are set. Like, everybody would love to just go out there and spend what you want. Do you know what I mean? Like, Villa have got really wealthy owners. Wouldn't we like to just go and splash 200 million, 300 million, 100 million? But you can't. You physically can't do it. So I think the fact that allegedly they've done it and they've won all this stuff by spending all that money is just ridiculous. And it's really annoying and it's frustrating because, you know, we're in a league grafting, trying to compete, and then look at what you're trying to compete with. So that's my thoughts on it. We'll go to Justin. What are you saying on it?
Oh, I think it's disgusting, and I think it's been coming for a long time. They've basically been creative, haven't they? A lot of big companies do it in every aspect of business world, and they've just tried to bend the rules, haven't they? The thing is, they've got an owner.
You might, Justin.
They had owners that had totally unlimited wealth, so and they were prepared to basically put as much money in as they wanted to get them to where they wanted to get to, and then they come up against the problem. They might have £100 billion, but you can only spend this much because you can only spend what you bring in. So how do we get around this problem? And I said it almost immediately when they changed the name of the stadium to the Etihad Stadium. Almost immediately when that shirt sponsorship went to Etihad Airways, I'm thinking, that's dodgy, that is. Because all of a sudden, you've got a parent company of the owners sponsoring your team and sponsoring the name of your stadium. So what's to say you can't just write a blank check and say, well, we sponsored this much? And that's one of the things that's been thrown. I was reading Kieran Maguire, who does a fantastic podcast all about it. And he said one of the things is the Premier League appears to be claiming the money was actually coming from club owner, which doesn't count towards FFP. It was being disguised as sponsorship income, which does count towards FFP, which is dodgy. So there's no way in the world that they haven't, that the Premier League haven't. They wouldn't have gone public with this unless they knew they had a pretty good case, because they know that Man City are going to rock up with 100 top lawyers and they're going to pick this apart. And I would be gobsmacked if they get a huge fine. I would be gobsmacked if they get any kind of sanctions against them, because this is going to drag on for a long, long time still. I want it to happen. I think it should happen. I think that these clubs have got to be held accountable. And just because you've got the most money doesn't mean that you can just ignore the rules. It is pretty disgusting. I mean, the fact that they every year they're topping like the income, the sponsorship income, that their fans, they've got a pretty good hardcore set of fans, like most clubs have, but they have not got the worldwide appeal of a Man United, of a Barcelona, of a Real Madrid. They just haven't. They haven't historically got that kind of size of fan base. So outside of Manchester, they're not that big. So how do they keep topping all these things? There's got to be something behind all this. There just simply has to be, and there's no smoke without fire. I would love nothing more than to get relegated for this. And personally, I think everything they've won during these periods from 2009 to 2019 should be struck from the record. And now I'm not saying that because I want Villa to win something that, you know, where we lost it, because I just put nobody's won them in that year, because I think that needs to show that, you can't get away with this stuff. You just can't, and it shouldn't be allowed. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 years' time we're not doing the same thing with Newcastle, because unfortunately, those kind of owners with that kind of money will always try and find ways around the rules. That's just how life is. That's how everything is. People with money try and get around rules and to benefit themselves. And it's unfair. It has been unfair. FFP is unfair. It was brought in to level the playing field, and it hasn't. Exactly what you said. The more money you make, the more money you can spend. So there's got to be a way, a bit like the NFL do it when they have salary caps and they have, you can only spend so much on wages per year. And then you have like a draft every year where the best players go to the worst teams to try and even it out. And it doesn't matter. It does even the playing field 100%. So there's got to be a rethink. I don't think there will be. I can't see it changing with probably even in our lifetime, to be honest. But I think now they've thrown this much at them, something has got to stick. Because if it doesn't, then that's as big a disgrace as what Man City have done for me now.
Yeah, it does just feel like the fact that the Premier League have gone at it, Ryan, there's got to be something in it, really, surely.
Yeah. You don't spend 4 years investigating a club, do you, for it to come to nothing? But
sorry, before I put into you, this isn't new to Man City. They've been investigated before, and they got banned from Europe, but they went to a court of arbitration, and they got sort of like time stamped out of it, didn't they? Because they couldn't go back as far as what the investigation needed to. They then got put back into the competition, didn't they?
But they were banned from Europe for 2 years. Now that overturned.
Yeah,
that's because they went to CAS. That's because they went to CAS and got good lawyers, didn't they?
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly.
But for
the
me,
Premier League one.
Sorry.
The Premier League one, they can go back, can't they?
Yeah.
They can go back.
And it can't go to CAS, this one can't.
Yeah.
So they can't take it to court. But the thing is, though, soon as it got announced, their statement, we welcome it. We're very surprised by it. We welcome the investigation, and we've got irrefutable evidence. Do you know what I mean? There's a saying, well, we've got undeniable evidence, whatever, welcome it, bring it on.
But if they had the evidence, they should have shown that, shouldn't they?
Well, apparently they haven't, because they said they were surprised because they'd been in talks with them and stuff like that. But that is strong language, and to have over 100 rule breaks in 10 years, oh my God. And, these rule breaks have what give them the foundations to be this super club. And now you think back to 2009 when they were taking Milner off us, when they were taking Barry off us, they crippled us. They crippled Arsenal. They took Adebayor, Lauren, Gail Sheetsy, Nasri. They just absolutely ripped Arsenal apart. Everton, they're taking Lescott. And so they were ripping all these teams apart. And they still do it now, didn't they? They don't need Grealish, did they? They didn't need Calvin Phillips, but they're still they cripple teams around them. Like they've monopolised the league, and it's like all this has been done while rules have been broken, and it's clear, isn't it, man? You say about these sponsorships, I'm sure they sponsored the training ground for like 500 million or something like that at the same time, and then they go and buy all these players. So punishment, they do need to get punished, but for me, I can't see them getting relegated. I cannot see the Premier League relegate them. No way, Jose, because they're worth money to the Premier League as well, aren't they? Having City in the league is money in their pocket as well.
The Premier League would be worried about being countersued if they dropped City into, say, the League One, and that they said that was the rules. Then immediately, then they would take them to court and say this is unfair. It's restriction of trade. You can't do this to us. And then it would be countersued time, and it would. All that's going to happen is going to go backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. Where does that leave football then? Because it leaves it in the mud, doesn't it? It leaves this constant merry-go-round.
I'll tell you where it does leave it. It leaves it in Super League territory.
Well, yeah, and this is what they want ultimately. This is what that size of club wants. They want to be unopposed at the top of world football, not European, not English football. They want to be unopposed. They want 20 teams to just dominate world football. They want all the best players. They want all the money. They want an elite, closed off Super League. And quite frankly, if that's what they want, I'd just say go and do it. I could not give a monkeys. I don't care what integrity they think they'd have. Just go and do it, and we'll carry on here without you, and you'll never be welcome back. It's so, and I would think 90% of their fan base wouldn't want it either, because it would rip apart, their clubs, But something's got to be done without question.
Yeah, I think so too. And I just look at the product more, and what is the product of the Premier League? And it's the football. It's a football that we like. We love. Do you know what I mean? And when you watch the FA Cup and you watch, like, I know it was crap for us, right? Like, we lost to Stevenage, but for football, that's brilliant, isn't it? And that's what football is all about. Like, just stuff like that, and all this like money and stuff. And like, you look at, like, is it PSV that are managed by Nistelrooy? He's managing like this. He's got this great team that he's like formed, and then like the Premier League just come and just like Gakpo, Madueke, who went to Chelsea, and then it's left them in like the. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. It's weird, but
that happens to Ajax every summer, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I think something definitely needs to be done, and like I said earlier, it needs to be like the precedent. So So Villa then, going back to Villa then. So Justin, can we go there and get something from this game then?
Yes. No, we can. Oh, no question. No question about it. We've won the last 3 away games. I think the last 4 Premier League games we're playing on Sunday, we've won. So we've got a great record there. We're going there with them all over the place. Hopefully negativity. We know their fans, all they're bothered about is getting their phones out and taking pictures from corners, and they don't celebrate. They're a plastic club now. That's just what they are. Let's go and get them. Get at them. Let's put that last week as a one-off out of the question. We've got a great manager. He'll have a plan for it. Let's go and execute the plan. Let's be loud, be vocal. The Villa fans will be loud and vocal, and let's go and bring some points home. We've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll finish on some positive news as well, some good news. Ollie Watkins has been involved in 5 goals in the last 7 games, and he's also hit the 30 Premier League mark, which is not a bad little milestone to get. I mean, considering how many our all-time goal scorers got, Gabby, he's kind of halfway, isn't he, really? He's halfway to that. So, Ryan, what are you saying? Do you reckon we can get something then?
Well, put this jersey on tonight. This one, 2006-2007 season. That was the last time we rocked up at the Etihad and won. So it is a big ask. It is a big ask. Sean Maloney and Carew with the goals that day. It's a big ask, but like we've touched on, I think the opportunity is there. I was there last season for that last game of the season. We was 2-0 up, and it was party time, man. The City fans, they were leaving. They were leaving, head in their hands, and it was just great seeing the Villa scoring at Manchester City. But just being in the lead as well. I've been there loads of times, and we've got hammered every time, 4s, 5s, and they bite you as well. The City fans as well. So we are long overdue one, and this would be a great time just to boot them while they're down. After all them years of being battered, just while they're down on the ground, just give them a flipping kick, you know what I mean? So see you later, 3 points. So yes, football is just the best sport in the world, isn't it? And if it's played fairly, anyone can beat anyone on their day. So hopefully it's our day on Sunday.
Yeah, and it is going to be a tough game. There's got to be a lot of things for Villa to do well to come out of anything from this game. And like Justin said, we've got to start the game well. We haven't got to concede early. We've got to stay in the game. We've got to be clinical, take our chances when they come.
We need to copy and paste that Tottenham away performance on it, because that
we
was
do.
the blueprint for it, wasn't it? That was just a perfect away performance against a top side, wasn't it? And we've got to be at the same level again, haven't we?
And I think we've got to. It feels for me like we've got to take them to a sort of familiar territory of what they went through at with the Spurs game. Like pose them questions where those players on the pitch have got to think, so just make it really difficult. So my score prediction for this game, it's one of them, and it's head and heart. Which one do you go with? But you know me, Villa fans, I'll go with my heart. And I'm going to say Unai Emery's Aston Villa away from home are going to stay unbeaten. 2-2 for me. Ryan?
I also had a head and a heart scoreline this week. My head was 4-0 City, but my heart is saying also unbeaten, 1-1.
Yeah. Justin?
I'm not predicting a score. I'm just going to say we are not going to lose on Sunday.
Okay.
Read of that what you will. Because I've got a sneaky feeling we might get a win, but I wouldn't want to say it. So I'll just think I don't think we'll lose the game.
Cool. So, on this episode, we've spoke about Man City quite a lot because of what's going on off the pitch. And I feel like we've if you want our thoughts on Villa, then go and watch the last 3 episodes that we've done: match reactions, player ratings, football phoning. And I just think sometimes it can get a little bit repetitive if you keep going over the same stuff, playing out from the back, making mistakes. So, a little bit of a different vibe today, talking more about Man City, how we can hurt them, more Premier League chat. So we'll talk about Villa a little bit more in detail on the predicted lineup. But cheers for watching, and up the Villa.
Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.